Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we will soon find out which warmongering, brainwashed cult will run this oligarchy. Let's talk. Well, hello there, Garland here, and it's time to figure out what time it is. What's happening with the two warmongering cults? You know, it's hilarious to me that there are people looking at this, and I'm watching TV. I'm going back and forth. I'm looking at MSNBC, CNN, Fox. Just to get a kind of a feel as to how the what I'll put it like this. Why do I watch those? Because I want to get a feel of what the ruling elite class wants us to think, right? So it's like, okay, if I want to know what the ruling elite class wants us to think, I got to turn on their mouthpieces. And voila, they're out there. And of course, I went to Fox, which sadly and pathetically is a mouthpiece for the elite ruling class that comes across as the conservatives. And then there's MSNBC and CNN, and those are the mouthpiece for the elite ruling class that wants to come across as the woke liberals, whatever the case may be. And they're just whining along. And here's a couple of things that we can look at. Number one, I look at this as a circus. Only problem is with the U.S., we got a circus and no bread. The old saying of bread and circus, we get a circus with no bread, right? But as a circus for this reason, what's really going to happen? What's really going to happen? The Republicans are going to fake as though if they get in, they may question the money going to Ukraine. They ain't going to do much. What are they going to do? Do you really think the Republicans are going to get in and say, oh well, we can't give Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all the people that funded us, we can't give them their money? That ain't going to happen. And they're going to do anything that doesn't support the troops. And by support the troops, I mean throw all of their money into the hands of the ruling elite that own them. This place, it's an oligarchy, but it's also a kakistocracy. If you ever look up kakistocracy, it is a political environment in which the most inept and corrupt people in a society run things, right? Now, the only thing about that is the only real issue I have with that is the last run things part, because can you get any more inept or corrupt than the Biden administration? Or even, let's face it, look at the Republican Party. Can you get any more inept or corrupt than the two parties disguised as one that are running this monster into the ground, right? So, no, they're inept enough to fit the standard for a kakistocracy, right? They are corrupt enough to fit the standard for a kakistocracy. But there's one standard that they don't meet, and that's the last part, that are running things, because they ain't running things. They are puppets for the people who really are running things. So as we watch them run this damn, the United States into the ground, I mean, let's face it, if you're honest about it, what have we kind of wavered around here for the last 30 or 40 years? It's been a downward trend. And the reason it's been let me change this. This thing has been a downward trend for working class people, for everyday Americans. If you're rich, this is the time of your life. It has been an upward trend. What we have is a society that funnels all the money out of the hands of the poor, of the working poor, of the working class, the middle class. The money comes out of their pockets into the greedy little hands of the oligarchs. That's what this society does. That's what the Republicans do. That's what the Democrats do. That's what Joe Biden does. That's what Trump will do. That's what all of them will do. Why is that? Because that's what this thing is set up to do. I mean, it's when people say our government doesn't work, this thing doesn't work. It works perfectly. The only reason you may think it doesn't work is because you don't understand what it's designed to do. It's not designed to work for you. It's not designed to work for the ruling elite class, and it works very well for the ruling elite class. So today we have the circles. Today we have the illusion. This is the term I use a lot of times. Illusion. Today is the day that they execute the illusion of democracy. The problem is it's getting harder and harder and harder. So now what happens? At some point, I mean, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Biden administration. I was listening to some stuff from various Democrats, and of course, they were saying the problem is that black male voters didn't didn't that didn't people didn't show up. The problem is not that they've run this thing down into the ground and made your life a living hell. The problem is, even though they did that, you didn't show out. Right. So now Biden gets to go out and say, look, we got some problems here because you working class bastards are not accurately representing the needs of the ruling elite class. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with you. We've had it up to here with you fools, but we expect you to get back in line. I know it's tough and it's going to get tougher, but we need you to go to the polls and vote for who we tell you the hell to vote for. I mean, think about it. Isn't that really what they say when they say this group didn't show up and that group didn't show up? And I add this, I'm listening to this one lady and she's saying, well, black males didn't show up for Stacey Abrams, right? And what she's saying is because of misinformation, they were the ones that were subject to misinformation. So here's what she's saying. I mean, if you think about it, this was a black woman. It was it was extremely elitist because it assumed that the people who were running had a right to expect those people to vote. Those people had a duty to show up and vote for these elitist bastards who were going to screw them again. And since they didn't, it wasn't that there were policies here that they were concerned with. It wasn't that they were looking in a mirror, they were looking in their friggin' pockets and they pull their pockets out and they're looking like elephant ears. There's nothing but friggin' lint in their pockets. That was not the problem at all. The problem was that misinformation. Now, there's two things about that. Number one, again, you're calling the people stupid. You're saying that they would have certainly came out to vote for who you thought they should have voted for, except they were misled into believing something that was false. But it also assumes that they're stupid. Think about this. If an elitist says to you, you've been misled by misinformation, doesn't that imply that that same misinformation wouldn't work on them because they're so much smarter than you? I mean, in order for them to know that you've been misled by misinformation, they got to be smart enough to determine that it is misinformation. And you got to not be smart enough to determine that it's misinformation. Otherwise, the dynamic that they're creating, you were misled by misinformation, and they're smart enough to see that it doesn't work unless you're an elitist. The littles don't understand what we're saying. So what we're going to hear over the next couple of days, I surmise from the Democrats, are some version of elitism that implies that the people didn't fulfill their moral and civic duty to come out and vote for a party that's thrown their ass under the bus. And, or, we'll say that, and, or, the people would have, except Russian bots, maybe Chinese bots, whoever they don't like, bots. I mean, the New York Times already started with that. They had this article and it was like, yeah, the Russian bots are out. These poor ignorant bastards out here. They're not smart enough to know their ass from a hole in the ground, but we are. But unfortunately for them, the Russians have memes of Buff Bernie again with multicolored background. And I mean, let's face it. You're going to the polls and you're like, I'm voting all Democrat today. And just on your Twitter account, something pops up and it's like, wow, that's a picture of Bernie Sanders and it's multicolored, almost like a rainbow flag. I'm writing in Putin. There's two parts of that. Are they really elitist enough to believe that people are that stupid? Kind of yes. Maybe they are or they aren't, but that's irrelevant because they have to say it anyway. Even if they're not smart enough, even if they're smart enough to know that it's bullcrap, they still have to say it for this reason. Because if they lose, and they will, and they admit that the littles had legitimate grievances about policy, then they would have to address those grievances, wouldn't they? And how would they address those grievances? Via policy. The problem is they don't give a damn about those people because that's not their constituency. Their constituency is the elite ruling class. So now we've got people who can't, you know what I mean? They literally cannot accept reality. It's almost kind of like foreign policy. You know what I mean? If you look at the US foreign policy, they have to create a narrative. The narrative is not relative to reality. The narrative is relative to what they want to do. Well, Ukraine guys are getting like friggin' the Ukrainian soldiers are getting mowed down like cordwood, but they have to say they got a chance to win. And if we just give them a few more air defense systems, gosh darn it all, they'll mow the Russians down. Why? Because even though they know the truth, they can't admit it. Even though the Pentagon is probably saying, guys, he looking so good for the Ukrainians, they're getting mowed down like cordwood. If they admit that reality, they can't keep giving Raytheon and Lockheed Martin the big bucks. So they have to live in a false narrative. Likewise, they've created the same dynamic politically. If they admit the truth, and that is that people, bottom line, let's for 1 second, in America, if you're in America, overwhelmingly, where do Black people fall? Working class, working poor, and poor. Overwhelmingly in the aggregate, again, if you take the numbers, that's the class that they fall in. Black people have not been showing up for Democrats like they used to, right? Why is that? Because of the economic class they're in is not being addressed by the Democratic Party, and in fact, it's being harmed by their policies. And let me add this: you can't talk about the midterms without talking about Joe Biden's promises when he ran for office. He's kept none of them to the working class. I'm sure he kept all of the ones that he made to the billionaires and his donors, but to the working class people, nothing. To people of color, to the various constituencies, right, within the Democratic Party, to various coalition, groups in his coalition. Every party is a system of coalitions brought together, and a good politician, good leaders can hold their coalition together. They're all coalitions of people who have various and sundry needs as groups. They bring those groups together. Boom, you got a party, right? The Democratic Party ignores the needs, and it's far worse than that. They do things that are antithetical to the needs of the working class, the working poor, and the poor. So therefore, you got people of color, Blacks, Latinos, etc., who come to the Democratic Party based on some thought that they had from the past that the Democratic Party is going to do something to help them. And the Democratic Party is happy to take their votes, but unhappy to do a damn thing for them, and they're not going to. And this thing is starting to melt away bit by bit. People are not showing up. Stacey Abrams in Georgia looks like she's going to lose. Now, what happened? What are one of the things that happened? She got 92% of the Black vote last time around and lost. She needed like 96 maybe, or better turnout. She got 84 this time. So you got 8% more people that went over to either we're talking about actual voters, percentage of Black people that voted. So you've got 8% of Black voters either went over and voted for the Republican or maybe voted third party, whatever the case, but they left her. They still came in, but they voted somewhere else. Why is that? Because they have no confidence that the Democratic Party is going to act on their behalf. Some of them, I guarantee you, some of them voted third party. Some of them might have voted for the other guy because they're like looking at Dark Brandon and his group of idiots and lunatics and sociopaths, and they're like, geez, these people, they're going to kill us all in a nuclear war. Don't think that ain't on some people's mind. There are people that are angry, looking at it, saying, man, since Dark Brandon came in, my life has been made a living hell. I can't afford gasoline anymore. I used to buy a pack of chicken wings for $6. Now it's 20. Forget that. I like my chicken wings. What's wrong with chicken wings? You know what I'm saying? Bratwurst, things of that nature, things that people eat on a daily basis. It's summertime, the grill's firing up bratwurst, and they're looking at the bratwurst, and they used to be $6, and now they're 16, and they're saying this is unacceptable. I need a drink. They go get a beer. The price is doubled. There's nothing they can. So their lives are more difficult after 2 years of Dark Brandon. And if they're looking at foreign policy, they don't know if they're going to live another 2 years under Dark Brandon. And so what are they doing? They're doing what people do. They're doing what people do. They're going in another direction. And here's the problem the Democrats have. Here's the problems the Democrats have long term. I don't see this thing turning itself around, right? I see them losing. I don't know how bad they're going to lose, but they're not going to do well. But I don't see that this is a party that has the ability to make a change. The Republicans can get away with the bullshit that they do. They can get away with what they do longer with their party because they've been in power. Once they get back in power, they're going to screw their people to the wall. But right now, because these two parties are so similar, but right now, They can get it. They got time on their hands. Time's on their side. The Democrats, this is a party that is fundamentally unable, because of the system, because of the structure of this party. The foundation of this party is a neoliberal culture that only looks out for the top 1%, same as the Republican Party, but their people are getting wise to them. And so it seems to me that what we're looking at is, to me, maybe I'm wrong. And I know people have said this before about various parties, but I think it's different now. I think we're looking at the beginning of the end for the Democratic Party, the downfall. Now, I don't believe that Democrats are going to go running over to the Republicans. And when I say the beginning of the end, does that mean that the party disappears? Not necessarily. But as an effective, powerful entity, I think we're looking at the beginning of the end, because people are looking at them. And here's what happens from here. And this is the way it always works. The constituency wants certain things. The Republicans, and I'll say this, they tend to run towards their base. Even if they don't give them substantive things, they at least try to do some of the things that they want, some of the stuff that they want. And a lot of times it's not related to fiscal policy, because when it comes to fiscal policy, they're full of crap. They're going to spend us into a into a fiscal nightmare, the same way the Democrats are. They're warmongering scumbags and all of that. But when it comes to some of the social things, they'll try to do it just enough to keep their people happy. They'll give them a little bit of red meat. The Democrats appear to fundamentally despise their base. I mean, they show contempt for their base in the worst kind of way. So if you despise your base, at some point, your base is going to figure that out. At some point, they're going to pick it up. When you lose and you're like, why'd you lose? Those idiots wouldn't show up. God, I hate these people. I don't know why we have to put up with them. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. They won't show up. They won't do what we tell them to do. They won't vote for who we want them to vote for. God, there's some horrible bastards. I don't know how we tolerate them. These voters are no longer representing the needs of the top 1%, and something must be done. That's the way the Democrats come across. Absolutely despise their base, contempt for their base. Well, excuse me, for the constituency that considers itself their base. They actually love their base, because their base is the top 1%. It is the donor class. And they are unabashed supporters of the donor class. And now something else has happened. And that is, the Biden administration is now the Bush administration from 2004, 2003 on steroids. They are the Bush administration if Dick Cheney was the president and John Bolton was the vice president. George W. Bush is a moderate compared to Biden and these mutts, Victoria Nuland and these insane psychopaths. They've gone right up to Russia's. Now look, they've gone right up to Russia's doorstep, and they're pumping weapons into this war on Russia's doorstep. Meanwhile, they've gone up to China's doorstep, and they're pumping weapons into China's doorstep. Both of them at the same time. Not a wise move. Not a wise move. That's the good way to get yourself nuked. Now, don't get me wrong. The Republicans are idiots too, and they're right down the same line, but they ain't in power. That's the difference. They aren't in power. And the Democrats have brainwashed through absolute absurdities, things that are easily debunked, that are demonstrably false and easy to be proven false. And they got their base believing this kind of stupid Russiagate style bullcrap, like it's real, like it's all real. You talk to people on their base. I was with some friends the other day, and people were talking, and I just wanted to shake my head. A nice guy, a guy I know is a very nice guy, a very intelligent guy, and people were talking about the richest man in the world. They're like, yeah, I don't know. He's Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. Is he going to be good for Twitter, bad for? And I was just sitting there. I do this a lot. I just sit there and watch. And I hear people say things that, kind of frost my cookies, but I just listen. And I don't try to push back, because I want to know what's going on. So one guy's going, no, you're wrong. And they're like, what? He's like, Elon Musk is not the richest man in the world. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe he's going to say Bill Gates, maybe he's going to whatever, right? And he says, really, who's the richest person in the world? He says, Putin. And I'm like, Yeah, Putin's the richest man in the world. And I'm thinking, ooh, okay, well then I guess check please. I'm thinking to myself, I don't blame this guy. I don't blame this guy. It's not his fault. He has been fed absurd propaganda, but that's just where the Democratic Party is. Because who else would, if you're a Democrat, what else would you say? Hey, who's the most evil person who's ever lived in the history of the world? A Putin. Who controls everything? The moon, the sun, the stars. Putin. Who chooses every Republican candidate and then manipulates every voting machine? Putin does it. Putin does everything. Anything bad, anything evil, Putin does it. He has everything. He's the most powerful person who's ever lived. Everything. It's all roads lead to Putin. Nancy Pelosi's literally said that. So they have brainwashed their people to the point where they've got a brainwashed cult who is not, has no connection to verifiable data, to empirical evidence, is out the window. It's, hey, what's going on? Did you hear what Putin said? Putin, Putin, Putin. Anything else? Yes, I was just watching MSNBC, and some anonymous intelligence officials said some things that I find very interesting. That's what you got now. You got a party that says Putin and hates Julian Assange. They don't even know what he did. Hey, what do you know about Julian Assange? He raped somebody. Who? Huh? Oh, I don't know. They know anything, nothing. But sadly, these poor bastards, anything you ask them, they barely have a superficial understanding of politics, only so much that they can reiterate some preposterous assertion. And should you ask them, as I love to do, I didn't do that, I wasn't in the mood, but the game I play is always one. It comes across as genuine, but to be quite honest, it's kind of devious, because this is what I'll do. Had I been in the mood, this is the way I do it. Yeah, the so-and-so's, whatever, Putin, Julian Assange, whatever. For instance, here's one. Yeah, Julian Assange, he's a rapist. And I'm like, and this is what I would do if I were of a mind to expose the absurdity of that. I'd say, really? Julian Assange a rapist? Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, they got him for raping somebody. Oh, man. Oh, I need to hear about this, dude. Let me, hold on. Let me remember. All right. I didn't know about that, man. Tell me the story. What happened? So I feign ignorance. And now, if you just say to somebody, if somebody says Julian Assange is a rapist, and you say, no, that's wrong, that's a bunch of bullshit, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, yes, I do, right? They're comfortable with that. They've made something, you push back, and they'll just scream you're a Russian bot or something. Then you lose. But what I like to do is I feign ignorance. And then I say, oh, you can help me and teach me. And I'm really genuine. Hey, really? Assange? Yeah, I don't know that much about Assange, but what's the story on this rape thing? Hold on a minute there. All right, I want to hear this, man. I have a pencil and paper, take some notes. Oh, I want to go online and check it out. Tell me about it. Fill me in. What happened with Assange's rape case? How many people did he rape? Is he a serial rapist? Did he kill any of them? Has he been caught? The man must be stopped. He's a madman. Let me know what time it is. Julian Assange, rape, I'm all ears. And they'll go, oh, because it just suddenly dawns on them that they're repeating the foundation of a talking point, but they don't even have a talking point underneath it, that they don't even have a superficial understanding. What they know is to say that Julian Assange is a rapist. And when you say, tell me about it, they can't, because A, he's never been accused of rape, but they don't know it. And B, they have nothing behind that. All they know is, I'm a member of a cult. My cult doesn't like Julian Assange. My cult makes this particular assertion against Julian Assange. And when I'm in my cult and I make this assertion, nobody's ever going to say, explain it to me further. They're all going to shake their head like this and say, he sure is a rapist. Isn't he a rapist? He's a rapist, everybody. Yes, sir, Julian Assange is a rapist, and nobody's ever going to challenge you. So what I like to do is challenge people. But to use a Zen perspective, I don't challenge them with fire. I challenge them with water. Right? I don't challenge them in a hot, fiery way that it comes up against them and tries to burn them. You tell me I challenge water. Water is gentle. It envelops you, but it's very powerful. So instead of, you tell me what, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, it's, oh, that's interesting. Wow, Assange, rapist. I don't know that much about Assange. Can you help me out? Tell me what happened. I really want to learn. I want to understand. I'm glad you know a lot about that, right? So now it's the opposite. But now I put them in a position. What are they going to do? They can't push back because there's nothing to push. I didn't push up against them. There's nothing for them to push about back. I just kind of relaxed and said, fill me in, and they're exposed, right? That's the way I like to do it. But what I found is when you listen to the foundational things that people in, we won't even talk about the Republican Party. I'm just going to talk about the Democratic Party. That's a different discussion. The foundational things that they believe are assertions with no substance, substance-free assertions. Putin's the richest man in the world. Tell me about it. If I'd have said, tell me about it, he'd have been like, yeah, I heard that. I heard, yeah, everybody knows that. Yeah, he's the richest man in the world. Really? How much does he have? Oh, millions, million, trillion, billions. Unthinkable. He's got all the money in the world. Diamond mines, gold mines, you name it. You know, they wouldn't have anything that they could tell me. Because when you're in a cult, people don't challenge you. Cults are about dogma, almost like a religious belief. What am I saying? Almost. It's a religious a style belief. You believe something, right? Let's go back to the Enlightenment period as a matter of faith. You believe things that have been revealed to you, right? You don't learn, you don't say, I'm going to learn something. Like, here, what do I want to do? If somebody says, this guy's been accused of rape, I don't accept that. Okay, well, all right. I want to look into it. I want to find out more. I want to find out what's the story. I got to read who are the victims, what happened, how come he's not in jail for rape, blah, 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 blah. I got to look into it, right? If you're a member of a cult, you don't need to look into it, because once you find out that the other people in your cult believe something, as a matter of faith and a matter of being a member of that cult, we all believe this. So the Democratic Party has created a brainwashed, mindless mob, a cult. Now, I'm going to argue that I can easily make an argument that the Republicans have, because I hate both parties, and there's a powerful argument, and I could do things, go on and on and on with them also. The other part of it is they're part of a narcissistic culture, a culture that says, think about this, American exceptionalism. Look up narcissism. Just look it up and find out what it is. One of the tenets, one of the foundations of narcissism is entitlement. I deserve more than everybody else. Because I'm me, because I'm better than everybody else, and I deserve more. That's one of the tenets of narcissism. Guess what? That's American exceptionalism. We deserve better. We deserve more. Why? Because we're Americans. That's one of the tenets of narcissism. So what you've got is two brainwashed cults that are that part of the foundation of what they believe, which is American exceptionalism, is inherently narcissistic. It's entitlement. I deserve things just because of who I am. I was born an American, right? That's almost like feudalism. I was born a member of the noble class. Therefore, I deserve better treatment. I deserve to be rich and fine silk and gold and all the things because I was born a member of the noble class. In a way, if you think about that, you're saying the world has a class system, and then America is the noble class, nobility. That is the kind of foundation of what? I hate to keep using the word foundation, but American exceptionalism. It's a kind of world international feudalism. There are classes, and America's at the top of the class. We're the noble class. We're the kings and queens of the world, and everybody else has to, bend to our beck and call. And there's a lot of people who are outside of these two brainwashed parties, these brainwashed cults, who are saying, look, and you're going to hear me say this over and over and over, I ain't got time for that stuff, dude. I'm just trying to eat. I got kids, or, wife, or husband, whoever they got, if a woman, whoever, right? I've got a family. Why don't we just use this? I got a family I got to feed. I got a roof to put over people's heads. I got things I got to do. I got responsibilities here. So I don't have time for all of this crap. I'm just trying to eat. You got a lot of Americans that are there. They don't have much money in the bank. They don't have a lot of substance, and they're looking at the prices. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make it through winter. And, the parties are just saying, look over there, Russia, China, communism, socialism, some weird ideology, democracy versus authoritarianism. When you're trying to eat, you don't have time for that, man. You don't have time for that. You're going to the grocery store, and all you got is an empty hand. But you do have democracy versus autocracy or some bullcrap like that. You still got an empty hand. And the elite ruling class doesn't care. They don't care. And people are waking up. Bit by bit, they're waking up. So the question is this. The Democrats are going to get pounded. How do they come back from it? How do they come back? Because usually here's the game. And you've heard me say this. Here's the game. The Democrats get in power, they screw things up for 4 to 8 years, and then the Republicans, then there's a big swing, and the Republicans swing into power, and then they screw things up for 4 to 8 years, and the Democrats, and that's all they do. They just know every X amount of years they ain't going to do anything for you. They're going to take care of the ruling elite class. You're going to get screwed, and at some point the time will come up, and the pendulum will swing, and they'll leave Congress or the White House or wherever, and they'll go get a job working for Bain Capital, BlackRock, Lockheed Martin, whatever the hell, right? Goldman Sachs, you name it, Rothschild's Bank. They already know the golden parachute is waiting because they've made those people so much money. So that's the game. Every 4 years, we just switch. Hey, dude, I'm out on the way out the door. Your turn for the next 4 to 8 years. I'll be back. And then every 4 to 8 years, you just argue the Republicans are bad, aren't they? Or the Democrats are terrible, aren't they? Yep. And you sweep back into office, your party is. But the people out here never get anybody to look out for their needs. Here's the problem. The Democrats are out of power. They've gone to completely, totally to a very horrible and dark place. And there is no avenue for them to recover because the next 2 years, Dark Brandon's still in power. And I don't know if you figured this out, but you know what he's going to do. The Republicans are in power, and the worst ideas that they could come up with to screw the working class and to give money to the billionaires, Dark Brandon's in down with that. He couldn't get anything done when it came to his policies that he promised the American people for 2 years, that he promised the constituency of his own party for 2 years. He can't touch that. But when the Republicans come and say, we need to cut Social Security. Oh, and by the way, Medicare, screw those old bastards too. We need to snatch their Social Security and Medicare. Dark Brandon's going to say, great idea, I'm down with that. He's going to do it. And then in 2024, the Republicans are going to run and say, we must stop Dark Brandon. He took your Medicare and your Social Security. He's horrible. And guess what's going to happen to the Democrats? Well, Dark Brandon ain't going to be able to run. By then, he'll be either dead or let's face it. He doesn't know what day it is right now. He's done. He's lost. He's finished. So that he can run in 2 years is a joke. It is preposterous. If he's alive in 2 years, I ain't betting on it. He will, by then, you talk about wandering aimlessly around a stage, you won't even be able to get him on a stage. At that point, he's so close to being done right now that there's no point in talking about Dark Brandon. And what are going to run? Kamala Harris, she's got the freaking IQ of a window shade. Pull it down, let go, back up. That's her. That's how smart she is. So what are they going to do? And how are they not going to run her? They played the whole thing. Hey, Kamala Harris is a woman of color, whatever that means. So she'll be the first woman of color to get her ass whipped mercilessly by the Republicans. That's when it's always, hey, she's the first woman of color too. Well, she'll be the first one to get her ass handed to her by the Republicans if they run for office. 2 more years of this bastard and the Democrats, you will have to go to a museum to find a Democrat because there won't be in any office in this country 2 more years of Dark Brandon. The Democratic Party has turned into an ugly monster, and I can't even bear to look at it anymore. You know what it looks like? I used to love vampire movies. Love them. Vampire movies, werewolf movies, zombie movies. That's old school horror. I like that stuff. You know what I mean? But in the vampire movies, what would you see? The vampire would be like a beautiful woman, right? Hot, gorgeous. Oh my God, she would just make your eyes fall out, right? And that's what attracted you. But then, and she'd bring the guy home. He'd think that they were going to have sex or whatever. She'd smile and all that. And at some point, just before she bit this poor bastard, she would transform into the real her. And it always kind of looked like a bat kind of thing, with the fangs and the eyes and the evilness and all that kind of stuff, right? And the real kind of demonic looking her would come out and the guy would go, holy shit, but she'd bite him anyway. It's too late, right? He's done. So she, the hot babe that he had turns into a horrific looking creature. Boom, she crunches down on his neck. He's done. Now, the Democrats were that hot babe at some point, and now they've transformed into the ugly creature, and they can't turn back into it. They can't turn back into the hot babe. They are the ugly creature. People are look at them. When Dark Brandon came in, and he swept into office with the Elizabeth Cheneys of the world, and the Max Boots, and these ungodly neocons, right? He swept them into office with him. Jake Sullivan, for God's sake. Tony Blinken, what a demonic force that sociopathic bastard is. Can it get any worse? I don't think. I thought you couldn't get worse than Pompeo, and you can't. But I'm telling you right now, Tony Blinken's right there. Pompeo's a total psychopath and a fruitcake. But Blinken is on his tail, man. He's running to get away from Tony Blinken because Tony Blinken's a sick bastard. And that is the entire cabinet of Dark Brandon. His cabinet is a bunch of Tony Blinkens. They are corrupt and they are warmongering, dangerous garbage. And so here's the question. With a cabinet like that, how do you fix that? How do you turn that around to a point where people are going to look at this ugly demon and say, oh yeah, it's a pretty girl again. Yeah, this is, oh, I think I'll go home with her tonight. We're going to have a good old time in the sack. No, they're going to be like, oh my God, look at that. You know, they're going to walk into the bar and the vampire has already transformed. Everybody's going to run out of the damn bar. Now, don't get me wrong. The Republicans are a werewolf, but at least they haven't turned yet. You know, they at least you got until the full moon with the Republicans, right? You can kind of hang out with them a good portion of the month. When the full moon comes out, yeah, you best be in another part of town, buddy. They'll, as Warren Zevon said, they'll tear your lungs out. But you can hang out with them for a little while, as long as it ain't a full moon. You'll have a lot of fun. Hang out, have a good time, whatever. Full moon, get the hell out of there. It ain't going to work out well for you. Trust me when I tell you that. But you got a transformed vampire day in and day out. That ain't attractive anymore. So that's what they got now. I'm sorry. The mask is off for the Democrats. I don't see a road back for them. That's the other part of it. It's not like the Democrats, like, oops, it's not like they're having a bad day. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, the Democrats, things didn't work out for them, but, you know, they'll get themselves together. They'll pick themselves up off the ground. They'll dust off the dirt and they'll be charging back. No, there's no avenue when you're the party of John Bolton and these other monsters. There ain't no avenue. There's no way to come back from that. What do you do? If they get the crap beat out of them tonight, which they probably will, what does Biden walk up tomorrow? Well, let's see. Who am I going to replace Tony Blinken with? He can't. You can't replace him. He's a psychopath. And guess what? You know why he's a psychopath? Because Joe Biden wants a psychopath in that position. You know why Victoria Nuland and these other psychopaths are in there? Because that's what he likes. Right now, one of the things the Democrats are doing, a Biden team is pushing for, right? There's a woman in Canada named Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland's grandfather was a friggin' Nazi. She's of Ukrainian descent. You're going to find that shocking. She's of Ukrainian descent, and her grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. Not a story you maybe have heard before. Happens every now and then in Ukraine, like more now than then, okay? And so now this woman is in Canada, and might I add, when she was asked about it, she lied. Like she collaborated on like a film or a project about her grandfather. She knew, let's face it was her grandfather. She knew this guy was a Nazi. And when she was asked about it, not only did she deny it, she went after the people, the reporters who asked her as doing the evil work of Russia. So she knows she's dirty and rotten and low, and she knows she's dirty, rotten, and low. You can't trust her as far as you can throw a tank, T-72, right? The Biden administration want her to be the head of NATO. Think about that for a second. In context, we cannot be held responsible for the sins of our grandfather. But if he was a Nazi and you lied about it, you got that issue. But then in context, the other context is this. The Azov Battalion, you're already supporting Nazi collaborators, a bunch of people who literally have statues and sing songs to Nazi collaborators. They're Nazis. So you're supporting Nazis, you're giving money to Nazis, you're giving weapons to Nazis, you're in love with Nazis, and they're like, hey, we need a new person to head NATO. Well, you know, I know a person who might just fit the bill. In fact, her grandfather was a Ukrainian Nazi collaborator, but that certainly does, that's not part of the equation. What do you think? You think that people are going to be like, not put two and two together? Hey, father's a Nazi collaborator and Ukrainian, and we are actually funding Nazis now. Those things are totally unrelated. I'm sure we'll just move on from that. And that ain't the way it works. But here's what it shows. Maybe the Nazis went to sleep for a while and woke back up. Maybe they took a little nap for a while, huh? Maybe the Nazis took a nap in Europe and they're just like, yeah, we're going to go build some, we're going to go work for NASA for a while and we'll do a few things, Operation Paperclip a bit. And at some point, Dark Brandon will come back in and Sieg Heil is back again. And now the United States is literally funding a bunch of goose-stepping Sieg Heil and tattoo swastika freaks. And to put icing on the cake, to bring in a new person to control NATO, a Nazi collaborator. Hey, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. The Nazis are back. You know, they have a picture of old Adolf with "We're back." Kind of like me with a tan rested and ready cap on, right? Nixon, 2024, we're back. And they're like, yeah, Adolf, 2023, she's back. In the context of what's going on in Ukraine with a bunch of guys goose stepping around with friggin' Nazi tattoos on. And the US is like, yeah, we've got a person that we'd like to consider for to run NATO. And now this is totally unrelated. Totally unrelated. We didn't take this into context whatsoever. This was not in any part of a consideration. But her grandfather was a Nazi collaborator and she lied about it. And, you know, other than that, I think that's something that we can overlook, move forward, and know we're guaranteed she will be completely fair. And it's what I've said. NATO is an umbrella organization, and it's kind of a Nazi umbrella organization. And they are getting less and less embarrassed about this Nazi connection. At first, they were like, yeah, we don't like Nazis. And it was like, hey, Azov, you better change the patch. Remember, they literally, after like this guy in Buffalo went out with a black sun similar to the Azovs and like mowed down a bunch of black people in a grocery store, and Dark Brandon and crew like went to the Azov Nazis and they're like, guys, a lot of people are bringing up that black sun. Let's come up with a patch, you know. So they rebranded the Azov Nazis, right? Now they're past that shit. They're just like, you know what? The Azov Nazis, that's our people, man. That's our bros, okay? That's our peeps. They're in our hood, right? They're on our battlefield. If you don't like Nazis, then you don't like us, because we're sick and tired of hiding who we are. They're out of the closet. The Dark Brandon and company are out of the closet when it comes to their Nazi inclinations, and it is clear and proven with Chrystia Freeland, with the old Ukrainian granddaughter of a Nazi collaborator. Okay, so here's my point. It may sound like I was beating around the bush and saying a lot of things that are unrelated, but it still comes back to this: how do you walk that back if you're the Democratic Party? If you are openly, have you decided that NATO is going to be the Third Reich reborn under Dark Brandon? That is your decision. Now, it's your decision. I ain't down with the Third Reich for obvious reasons, but that's what Dark Brandon has decided. How do you walk that back? How do you be like, yeah, we're down with Nazis and we're supporting Nazis and we need the granddaughter of a Nazi collaborator to run the situation, and then like, oh God, we lost and a lot of seats in the election. What are you going to do? Hey, I say we back down on the Nazis. That ain't how Nazism works. That is not how fascism works. You know what they're going to do? They're going to double down. Why'd you lose? Censorship online and misinformation. We really need to crack down on the censorship, because we didn't lose. It was stolen from us, right? The Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians. Look, you know how they do. They're going to make a list of their enemies, and some schmuck at the Washington Post is going to argue, and New York Times is going to say that they got a, how do they usually put it? They have tips from anonymous intelligence officials, that the anonymous intelligence officials believe that they just take out the list of the people they don't like. Anonymous intelligence officials believe that, hey, can you hand me that fax from the CIA? Venezuelans, Iranians, what is this? Ethiopians. Oh, okay. Ethiopians, and they'll just keep going. Cubans, Chinese, Syrians, They're just going to read. Yes, anonymous intelligence officials have decided that a bunch of people, there's just too many right now for us to read, but we're going to set up a website with a list of all the people who stole the election from us. You can just click on them. There's just a list of our adversaries. Just go to cia.gov for more. cia.gov. Information for you. Find out who our enemies are, and subsequently you'll notice that those are the exact same people that we are alleging that stole the election from us and gave it to the Republicans. So that's what we're looking at, I think. Oh, by the way, of course, what do you think about this? When the Democrats lose, they'll do what they always do. We went too far to the left. We gave the left too much. And here's my question. What'd you give them? You didn't give anybody anything. You give the left anything. You didn't give the right anything. You know, you gave something to the military-industrial complex, the banks, the Nazis. Sure, big agri, Pfizer. But when it comes to the left, what'd you give them? Did you give them Medicare for all? Oh, did you give them infrastructure, maybe? Did you give them anything that they wanted? Nothing. And let me also say this about the Progressive Caucus, such as it were. What are they going to do now? The last thing they did was wrote a mealy-mouthed letter to Biden saying, you're doing a great job with this whole support Nazis things and giving all of our freaking money to the Azov battalion. However, perhaps you should consider a little teeny bit of diplomacy, along with giving the hundreds of billions of dollars to the Azov, tens of billions to the Azov Nazis, but perhaps a little bit. Within 24 hours, they're like, never mind, just give them all and give them damn Nazis everything and screw the American people. We're sorry, we were wrong. That's the U.S. progressives. So what are they going to do? If they get their ass handed to them tonight, what are they going to do? Write a letter? Oh, yes, the Progressive Caucus strongly encourages that Joe Biden do something that will help the working class. And 24 hours later, we take it back. Screw the working class. Give it all to the Nazis. We already know they're feckless, pitiful, and pathetically weak. They're so pathetic. They wrote a letter to Biden and they had nothing. And here's what's the saddest thing. I'm telling you, if I got to take two groups and one of them's a person on this planet and say they are the most pathetic on earth, it's Olaf Scholz. Don't even get me started on Olaf Scholz. Don't even get me started on what Biden did to him. Hey, what do you think about the Nord Stream 2? Olaf Scholz is like, yeah, well, it's going to be fine. We don't want to talk about it. How about you, Biden? You tell that dumbass to shut up. We're going to blow the shit out of it. That's what we're going to do. And he ain't going to do nothing about it. And he's a sniveling coward. The guy, I mean, look, when it comes to, like, the woke pronouns, Olaf Scholz has to go with she, her, or they, them, because him don't work for Olaf Scholz. There ain't an ounce of testosterone within 100 miles of Olaf Scholz. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now, Angela Merkel has 10 times the testosterone of this guy. He has none. I'll be honest, if he wanted to be like a trans person, he wouldn't have to take any hormones because he's got no testosterone. In fact, I'll go one further. If somebody else wanted to be a trans, they could just suck his blood out and pump it into them. If there were a vampire, a male vampire, and he bit that bastard in the neck, he'd turn into a female vampire, because this man has no testosterone. He is the weakest, most pathetic so-called leader of any country in history. In the history of the world, there has never been a weaker leader than Olaf Scholz. Don't even get me started on that poor bastard. But the other people are Pramila Jayapal and the Progressive Caucus. Oh, they have humiliated themselves to a point where they're not even part of the discussion anymore. They've humiliated themselves on every level. Again, how does the Democratic Party come back? Now, on one hand, they got Dark Brandon, a guy who just wanders. He gives a speech for 5 minutes and he wanders around the damn stage for 20 minutes trying to find his way off. And then, like, Kamala Harris is chasing behind him, grabbing him, pulling on him. They need to get this guy, get him a service dog. Get the damn man a service dog so he can get the hell off the stage, because he can't seem to find his way any other way. He's toast. So you got this guy on one end surrounded by a bunch of friggin' Nazis and sociopaths. On the other end, you got Pramila Jayapal and the Congressional Caucus who are writing letters one day and then they pull it right back. It's like on a rubber band. Here's the letter. Whoop, pull it back. And then she throws her staff under the bus. Hey, why'd you do that? Wasn't me. Who was it? That guy over there that sweeps the floor. You're the head of the Progressive Caucus and you didn't have anything to do with it? It was somebody who worked for you. Yeah, it wasn't me. It was one of my staff members that works for me, and they will pay for that. Yes, sir. I didn't know they were. Why? I don't know that. Blah, blah, blah. So you've got Dark Brandon on the one end of the party, a friggin' sociopath with a Swiss cheese for a brain that's holier than the Pope, and on the other end you got the pathetic progressive. I mean, I got to tell you, I feel bad when I mention the Progressive Caucus. I hang my head in shame. And I don't even know these people, but I just hang my head in shame that human beings on this earth could be that weak and pathetic to the point where they will degrade and humiliate themselves. I tell you what, though, I've got to say this. They need to contact Olaf Scholz and say, look, maybe you're not part of the United States Congress. Fair enough. But you have met all of the requirements to be a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He has. He's degraded himself. He's dropped to his knees and humiliated himself in front of the entire world at the hands of a guy who doesn't even know his name on his best days and never came back from that. He's done that. And that's a daily thing for them. Mama Bear, you go to them and they're like, what are you doing there? AOC, the squad, the Progressive Caucus. They're like, oh, we don't know. We'll have to go after Nancy Pelosi. As if she knows what the hell's going on. She sounds like she's drunk. People say she's drunk. I don't think she's drunk. I just think her and Biden are maybe in a situation in life where, they're not, let's just say they're not as spry as they used to be, physically or mentally. I mean, both of them sound like they're intoxicated. You listen to Biden, his words are all slurred. Yeah, we're and then you bring Pelosi out. Her words are all slurred. Is it an accident? Now think about this too, about the Democratic Party. This is the leadership of the Democratic Party. Two people who are octogenarians. But wait a minute, Bernie's like older than somewhere in there. He's around 80. I may not have my issues with Bernie, but Bernie seems like he knows what the hell's going on. You're like, what's happening, Bernie? People have done something that's bad. That's unacceptable. He can say unacceptable without sounding like he's drunk. He can say just as clear and crisp, unacceptable. And I'm like, hey, Bernie, I got my issues with you, but man, that was a pretty damn good unacceptable right there. That's good. And then you bring out Dark Brandon, you bring out Pelosi. What the hell did you just say? Sounds like you had a mouthful of cotton. Did you just leave the dentist office or something? These people can't even speak. And you wonder why they're running the country straight to hell. Not just the country, might I add. The world straight to hell. They're like threatening nuclear war with two other superpowers, and they can barely put together a sentence. And when they do, the words are so slurred together, you don't even know what the hell they said. And that's the leadership of the Democratic Party. And they're like, yeah, I can't understand why people aren't, supporting and following us. I mean, yeah, look over there, it's Trump. Trump can put a word together. You might not like what he says, you might, but I tell you what, he can crack a joke. He can put a word together. He can put a sentence together, and he can enunciate. He can enunciate. You can't enunciate. Liz Truss could enunciate, and she's about as smart as Kamala Harris, give or take an IQ point, and that don't leave them with many because they ain't got a whole lot of IQ points to spare. Trust me when I tell you that. So all I'm saying is this, the Democratic Party is shot to hell. It is nothing but a corporate entity, wholly corporate entity. It is one of two brainwashed cults. But I mean, let's face it, at least the leadership of the Republican Party has a brain to be washed. Theirs are all washed out. It's been hung on the line one time too many. And, if you ever take clothes, back in the day when I was a little kid, people used to still use clotheslines, right? And nothing dries your clothes like a clothesline, right? And clothesline, growing up, my mom had a clothesline. There's probably some people here that did. But here's the thing, you know this. You take a pair of jeans and you wash them and you hang out on the clothesline and leave them out in the sun. Man, the sun does a beautiful job on a pair of jeans, fading them out. Washes them right out, right? I think Joe Biden's brain has been hung out on a freaking clothesline because it is washed clear. It is stone washed. And that's him, and that's Nancy Pelosi, and that's not Kamala Harris, because there is nothing to wash. If you open air, if you look inside of her skull, you're going to find bubbles, you're going to find soap, but you ain't finding nothing to wash, nothing there. And how does a party that is inept, that is corrupt, how does that has, I mean, it's like you ever be like a sports team, and particularly like maybe your sports team's doing good, but you look at your sports team on a given year and you're like, man, our starters aren't very good. Yeah, coach kind of sucks. What does the bench look like? We got nothing. You don't have much. You know that season is over. But then you look at it and you're like, we ain't got nothing to work with to start next year. We got to blow this thing up. That's what they say. We got to blow this thing up, right? We got to take this team apart. The coaching is poor. The players are bad. The starters are horrible. The bench is worse. We got nothing. Well, let's just start with the practice facility. That's where the Democrats are. But the owners are perfectly happy with it. You know why? Because they're getting paid. They're eating well. They're eating well. And so I think the Democratic Party goes down, and I don't see a road to recovery for those bastards. All right. Thanks a lot, you all. I've been on for, my God, nearly an hour running my yap. Thanks a lot. While I'm here, I got to look at the super chats. Let's see. There are some super chats. Let's start with Old Surge says, if you only saw Garland, all the memes and jokes about the U.S. midterms they've been making in Russia in the last couple of weeks, and something tells me that our friends will take all that merriment as a confession. Thanks a lot, Surge. Yeah. Yeah. Look, how can you not? How can you not laugh at these ignorant bastards? Eric says, thank you for your insight. You got to laugh. Dark Brandon, come on, look at this guy. You got it. He's a joke. He's a walking joke. Super sticker, Lynn. Thanks a lot, Lynn. I really appreciate the support. Everybody, I really appreciate the support. Oh, do we have and Pachico Rain says, unabashed supporter of defunding the duopoly. Yeah, good. There we go. I'm with you there. Oh, we got another one. Let's look at good old salty Texas trucker. I voted, but the first time I didn't care. Yes, sir. Third party. That's my vote. I vote for anybody. I hope Jesse Ventura runs again. That's all I'm trying to say. Did you read Blinken's book, Ally versus Ally? Yes, sir. I haven't finished it. I'm still working on it. It is in my bedroom. Ally versus ally. Yeah. How about this? Psychopath versus psychopath. That's what it is. All right. We got some people on Rockfin. Laura says, love your show. Thank you, Laura. And that is Laura Baza. Dave Carlton says, peace and thanks, Mr. Nixon. How can I get one of those hats? You know, people are asking me for these hats. People are saying, what's up with these hats? And I'm not answering. Not yet, anyway. All right. So I might have to get some hats. You guys want some hats? I don't know. garlandin@gmail.com. Is it worth it? Should I get some hats made? Would anybody even wear one? I don't know. Would people want one? I don't know. We'll see. Bordello of Blood. Oh, that was really good. Bordello of Blood was great. The really evil vampire lady was gorgeous, wasn't she? Oh, she was beautiful. She bit Dennis Miller in the leg at the end or something. Yeah, she was gorgeous. Maybe that's one of the reasons I like vampire movies. Man, there is nothing prettier than a female vampire. But I'll say this. Yeah, those dates usually don't work out so well for the guys to date them in the end. It's usually a bordello of blood, right? Let's go. Keith Alcock. Thanks a lot, Keith. Appreciate that. I think that is it. That is the bordello of blood. That is Garland Nixon's channel. Yes, so it's a referendum on Dark Brandon, but it's also a referendum on the Democratic Party, which has fallen into the abyss. Pardon me, gang. And let's just hope the hell that the rest of us stay out of there. Now, tomorrow morning, be interesting to see what Scott Ritter has. 9 a.m. Be there. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get Jimmy. So let's go. Christopher Dobby says, get Jimmy as your VP. Give people an option. Now you're talking love Jimmy. That would be great. That would be fantastic. We shall see. I ain't talking. You know, never know. Okay. Nixon, that's a name, good name for a president, don't you think? President Nixon? I think so. At any rate, so tomorrow morning, as you know, it's Wednesday morning. That means Scott Ritter. That means Scott Ritter. And man, it's going to be fun because what I want to hear, Scott, his thoughts on what happens. Of course, he gives us he gives us the skinny, as they used to say. He gives us the skinny on what's happening on the battlefield in Ukraine, what he thinks is next. And also, I think it'd be interesting to see what he thinks is going to happen as a result of these bastards taking a merciless beating tonight, which I think is what's going to happen with the Democratic Party. Let's look. Let's see if maybe I can go somewhere. What's a good website to go to get the update on this? GOP scores victories in key races. Republicans pick up a House seat. Democrats with a House seat in the Bellwether district, currently represented by Democrat Elaine Lara. Okay, I'm looking. Republicans need 1 Democratic seat to gain control of the Senate. Republicans need 23 competitive seats to gain control of the House. Let me see. How about we go to Fox? We're gonna go. I'm going to Fox. What the hell am I doing? I'm leaving you guys out. Let's do this. Let's do this together, my dear friends. Let's go to Fox. Not Facebook. FOXN. All right. Possible 22. Okay. DeSantis. I got no. I mean, people are like, yeah, DeSantis is a good guy. He's just another neocon guy who's like, yeah, could Israel ever say anything that he would question? Ain't happening. So yeah, no. O'Rourke loses 3rd election in a row. You know what? Here's what I got to say about the Democrats. Run them again. Why not? You're going to lose. Keep running this schmuck over and over again. Perfect representation for the party. 3rd in a row. Keep running. Beto O'Rourke's your man. Keep running him. Sooner or later, he'll win. I guarantee you. Just keep going for it. Illinois, Pritzker wins. DeSantis crushes Christ. Yeah, I think part of that in Florida, to be quite frank with you, I think there are areas such as particularly Florida where a lot of the COVID stuff is going to catch up to the Democrats too. There are areas that are kind of maybe purplish where there are a lot of people who weren't real thrilled with the mandates and some of the rather onerous COVID things. And I think that particularly in Florida, you know, can I tell you something that's truthful? Can I say something that's truthful? And you know, I'm a lefty, you know, but I try to be honest and, hey man, it is what it is. During COVID, we had a Republican governor, and I've talked with other friends of mine that are diehard Democrats. I'm not, I hate the Democratic Party, who actually said this to me, and I might as well tell the truth. I was glad we had a Republican governor. And I don't agree with the Republicans on anything. I'm a lefty, but I was really glad during COVID that we had a Republican governor, so we didn't have to deal with some of that insanity. You can't go into a restaurant or a bar or whatever the hell if you're unvaxxed and all this such craziness. I was glad during COVID that we had a Republican governor because God knows I didn't want to deal with the crap they're dealing with in New York and all these extra mandates and stuff. I don't want any parts of that. I said something I remember. I had one of my many car accidents, but during COVID, I had a car accident. Somebody ran a red light and nailed me. And I had like a boot on my foot, and I was getting in the elevator, going to this medical appointment. And an old guy gets in, white guy gets in, nice guy. He gets in, and you had to have mask stuff. It was voluntary for whatever at that time. This was before Omicron. No, this was after Omicron. And I'm in there, after or before? I don't remember, whatever the hell. I think it was before Omicron, but it might not have been. So the guy, yeah, it was definitely after Omicron. Okay, because I had COVID, because I had Omicron. So I'm getting in the elevator, and this old guy gets in the elevator. He's fumbling with his mask, and he can't get his mask on. He says, God damn it. He says, I did everything you're supposed to do. I got all my shots, and I still got COVID. Right. And I could tell the level of frustration. He was struggling with the mask. He'd had COVID and he was pissed. And it was like, I did everything these bastards told me to do. They told me you have to do this to protect yourself. And I still got damn COVID. He felt like he'd been had. And I think that there are some areas, I don't know where, but I do think there are some areas where the Democrats are still going to take some heat from COVID. From the COVID stuff. There's still people who just say, let's just say, have a bad taste in their mouth over some of that bull crap. And I didn't, I never in my life thought I'd be the one that would say, boy, I'm sure glad we got a Republican governor. But during the time that COVID was going on, I was like, thank God we got a Republican governor. I don't have to go through that madness like the rest of the country's going through. If I was in California, I'd friggin' hang myself. I'd have to jump right in and go out and run out in San Francisco Bay and hope I was swallowed by a great white shark, because God knows I wouldn't want to have to go through what they went through in San Francisco. Unthinkable, right? So, I mean, that's a reality. And I think there may be some areas where there are people who are of that mindset. Would I vote for a Republican? There was a time when I said I'd sooner cut my hand off to vote for a Republican. But let me say this. Right now, if there's a Republican running against a Democrat in Maryland, and the Republican said, I'm opposed to war, let's say he was a libertarian minded, and he said, look, I'm opposed to war, and I don't want war with Russia. I don't want war with China. I want to bring the troops home. I'd vote for him or her. I'd vote for him. If they were saying, I'm tired of this war stuff, I'm tired of funding all these wars, I want to bring the troops home, I'll be honest with you, I'd vote for him. I wouldn't agree with them on anything else probably, but I'd be like, well, we can start by not having a nuclear war. We can work with that, and we'll go from there, okay? They could be a jerk. They could literally be a racist. They could say, I don't like black people. I'd say, well, not a problem. I understand that. I'm not shocked. However, you want to bring your troops home and you don't want war with Russia, China, or Iran, or any of those people? Absolutely not. You got my vote there. Because, we got priorities in life, and not ending the existence of humankind by nuclear extinction is kind of right up there near the top for me. I think it should be, one of our highest priorities. But apparently, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I'm in the minority, which is why I ain't in the Democratic Party. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate it. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, let me fill you in. Every Wednesday morning from 9 till 10 a.m. And I like to be completely open and honest with people because this is reality. I got to keep my channels going. Every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m., I have Scott Witter. Scott's a friend of mine. He's agreed to do it. So every Wednesday from 9 to 10 a.m., Scott Ritter comes on and he puts us paid, man. He gives us the latest information. That's Eastern Standard Time. But we do it here. We do the first 15 to 20 minutes on YouTube and all the other platforms. The last 40 to 45 minutes are on my Rockfin channel only. And as a Rockfin creator, whatever that means, all the Rockfin creators, we have to do one premium show a week. That's my premium show. That's my only premium show. I do that. And you have to be a member of Rockfin to see the rest of that 45 minutes. It's $9.99 a month to be a member of Rockfin. And if you sign up for a year, you get 2 months free. So you only pay for 10 months. But you don't have to be. Certainly, if you can't afford it, no problem. You'll get 99.9% of all my stuff to be a free member. If you want to be a subscriber, that really helps the channel. I appreciate anybody can do that. And plus, you get to see Scott Ritter. Well, you see him everywhere. The first 15 to 20 minutes, I want him everywhere. I want everybody to see him. I want everybody to hear what he has to say. We cover some important stuff. The last 40 to 45 minutes is my one required weekly premium show on Rockfin. It's well worth it. It's really well worth it to be a premium member, because I'll also add, you can not only see my premium shows, all of the creators. There's a lot of great shows on Rockfin, and you can see everybody's premium stuff. If you can't, certainly I understand it. You'll get the first, you will get the first 20 minutes or so, and you get a lot out of that. So whatever the case may be. All right. Thanks a lot, you all. Appreciate it. I appreciate everybody. Follow me at Garland Nixon. Remember, there's a bunch of ways to support the channel. Everything's scrolling across the bottom. You can go to certainly PayPal. If you don't like PayPal, buymeacoffee.com. That works. Patreon.com, 3, 5, 100, whatever you can do monthly there. I certainly appreciate that. And of course, you'll see my my Cash App stuff there. Whatever you can do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. And especially those who could become members of my Rockfin channel. If you can become a paid subscriber, you don't have to. Remember that only one show a month. If you can't afford it, don't worry about it. So I appreciate everybody. Chicken Patty, thank you very much. She gives us a moral compass. Chicken Patty gives this channel a moral compass. That's why we must all support Chicken Patty. Peace. I'm out.